Good afternoon in North America, good evening in Europe and around the world. Thank you for joining me on another Music Cafe, a very special one. And before I start, I want to thank the people at Nespresso that are not sponsoring me, but the nice ladies at Yorkdale were very helpful with the coffee yesterday. So I want to thank them. I said I would do that publicly. And before I bring our guest today, which I'm thrilled to have him, it's an amazing surprise that he's joining us from Salzburg today. Just a little musical clip before we start our conversation today.
Wir haben die Dinge der Vergangenheit gelernt, sie in die Gegenwart mitzunehmen und der Zukunft weiterzureichen.
Es gibt mir mal mehr Crescendo da.
Es gibt Dinge, wo die Materie beseelt ist. Ich glaube sehr dran. Ich war immer der Meinung, dass man mit einer Sache warten soll, bis sie wirklich technisch ausgereift ist.
Nein, Sie eilen. Nein, Entschuldigen, Sie eilen. Nein, nicht, aber wie kann...
One of the wonders in music, and I'm thrilled to have Matthias Röder joining us today. He's the CEO of the Karajan Institute in Salzburg. Matthias, welcome. Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you so much, Alex, for having me. It's a pleasure to be with you. We haven't seen each other in a while, and it's great to see you again.
Thank you. It's a pleasure. It's an honor to have you. It's been a year and a half. And there's a particular reason why it's been such a long time. I saw you a year and a half ago in your conference, the Karajan Music and Technology, there in Salzburg. We were supposed to meet in April, or was it in March this year? Usually it's on my birthday. It's exactly on my birthday, the conference. Twice it has happened, and I've been honored enough to be invited. And this year, obviously, for obvious reasons, you have to change the conference and do it online.
Yes.
And before we start discussing all of this, Matthias, how are you? How's the family? How's everybody in Austria now?
Well, it has been quite a ride. We were amongst the first countries to go into lockdown, and so we are currently post first wave, but we were enjoying a couple of weeks of freedom, and now things are slowly coming back, I believe. So we have a few, COVID resurgences in Austria, and so we're taking it very serious here. But right now, everything is open and free. People are, of course, taking good care to keep their distance and being safe. But yeah, everything is fine. Thank you for asking.
Very well. I wanted to talk to you, obviously, because of Herbert von Karajan, and you'll excuse my very, very bad pronunciation. There's so many questions coming to mind, especially now because you are not only the CEO of the Institute, but you're a driving force in mixing technology and classical music. And certainly this times since February up until now has been really a testing ground for everything you've been working the past few years in the institute. As we saw on the clip, von Karajan was not only one of the great conductors that ever lived, but he was like always in at the head of pushing the newest technologies possible. So I want, and this brings me to several questions for you. First of all, what is the Institute doing? Well, let's start with that. What is the Institute doing these days, and what is the purpose? Because you always have like a million ideas, and it's always a joy to hear you.
So the Institute was founded by Eliette von Karajan, the widow of Herbert von Karajan. The mission of the Institute is to continue what Herbert von Karajan has brought into the classical music world and continue that to today and into the future. So it's all about helping people to enjoy classical music, actually getting classical music to the places and into the times of people when they want to enjoy it. Herbert von Karajan was a visionary, and his idea was to bring the beauty of classical music to as many people as possible, and that's why he was so closely watching what was happening in technology. And so that's what we are trying to do today. Of course, it's a different time, it's a different world. So when he was looking at the CD, the compact disc, as a recording format, we are now looking at streaming, artificial intelligence, and hyper-personalization of musical experiences. But in the core of it, it's the same thing. So this is what we're mainly about. We, of course, have also an archive that collects information about him, letters, the correspondence that he has left. So it's a mixture of a place where you can learn about a great legacy of this man, and also looking into the future.
And I know that he flew his own plane, and he was really at the forefront of technology always. Of course, the conductor of the Berlin Philharmonic, who right now is the #1 orchestra digitally around the world. Tell me, Matthias, what initiatives are you working on? Because I'm always surprised. You always surprise me. You were working with Dolby and with Sennheiser on creating some new things. What's on your mind these days?
So right now we are really trying to help musicians around the globe to do what they want to do, and that is play music for people and enjoy being or helping them have a great emotional experience around music. And so that, of course, in a time of lockdown, in a time of restricted social gatherings, is quite difficult. And while it feels that large parts of the economy are already out of the worst, for musicians, it still is hell. No performances, or very, very few performances, no way to earn your living. And so what we have been doing in the past couple of months was to go into a collaboration with Deutsche Telekom, who has been starting a COVID-19 television channel. And we were producing content with the Karajan Fellows Network. These are young musicians from around the globe that we, have in our network. And we produced half-hour shows for Deutsche Telekom that were streamed to their 5 million customers in Germany, Austria, and Switzerland. And this was only a first, but we've seen that because we were so much into digitized and really technology enabled workflows, we could actually produce in a time when most other companies were not able to even get a camera team someplace. So this is what we've been doing in the past couple of months. Now we are trying to see how we can actually develop that into our own format. We have a website called Karajan.tv, where we will be hosting a lot of the programs that we are currently producing.
As I said before, this seemed to be the ideal moment to experiment with digital technologies for the arts. And what I've seen is that either some people have been really, really creative. When it started, everybody started doing those Zoom videos with their performances, but other organizations have not taken any advantage of the technology. They basically shut down and they said, "We'll see you in 2021."
Yes.
What do you think? Why is that happening? Why are people not taking advantage? I mean, we're in a very creative field, and it's either going both ways. I don't see, just go straight. It's either we're shutting down or we're creating something like I saw a ballet company in I don't remember if it was Sweden. They created the ballerinas have their dresses are 2 meters in diameter, so they're all far away from each other. Very, very interesting. But a lot of companies are not doing that, and I always think, why are they not taking the opportunity to, experiment with something?
Yeah, well, I don't know. You should ask them, but I think I think what's happening in the world right now is that you have it's like a catalyst for a lot of movements, and they could be developments that could be going into the right direction or in the wrong direction. And if you were someone who was opposed to digital technology before, this is not going to change in the crisis. So you have people who were trying out things, who are now really going forward and saying like, okay, this is the time to try it out. And then there are others who say, well, this is not our thing. We're going to sit this out and wait until we can do what we can do best. And I think that there are pros and cons on both sides. So for some, it wouldn't be feasible to now go digital, but for others, it's a huge chance. For instance, let me tell you about my own conference, the Karajan Music Tech Conference. When Austria decided on a lockdown or partial lockdown, in the beginning it was only every event with more than 100 people was not allowed. We said, okay, well, what do we do now? This is like 2 weeks from our event. Mm-hmm. And we had everything set for a physical, no streaming event because, you know me, I'm all about personal relationships and creating networks of people to engage and create value. And we sat down and we thought, what can we do? And I said, well, if there's one organization in the world that should now go digital, it's us, because we are all about digital technology. So
right.
So we decided that we would create a fully digital experience, and we pulled it off in 2 weeks. It was really a really rough time for everyone involved. My team was working nonstop,
Yep.
and the connections we had, everyone helped. So this is one end of the spectrum. The other end of the spectrum is, of course, you have a big festival that happens every year, that happens, for decades, and they have operational issues, and you can't move this online because it's considered an analog experience. And so this is the other end of the spectrum. I believe, though, that now going forward, everyone will recognize how important it is to engage your community in a digital way, so that if something happens and you can't get together in a physical sense, you can at least offer some value to your customers via the digital world. It's that has changed.
Yeah, the conference, I've attended. I don't know. This was going to be my third conference going, and obviously we had to cancel. It was like and you brought it up like really quickly. I suppose it was very complicated to get it all, because it was right at the beginning of the lockdown, and you
Yes.
had you had great guests. You had Ola from the Berlin Philharmoniker coming. You had people from
Yes.
really all over the world.
Yeah,
coming
Vienna
to
State Opera, yes. Berlin
Oh,
Philharmonic,
right.
and so on and so on. Yes,
True, the
yeah.
Vienna State Opera. Now I forgot his name. It's so embarrassing.
Christopher Wiedauer,
Christopher
who's doing
Wiedauer, exactly,
the
Christopher.
streaming digital program there. We had artists from Los Angeles, also non-classical. It was for us, Alex. Typically, we have 300 people, 200, 300 people in Salzburg, and it's a very close-knit community. It's really like a big family reunion every year. But that year we had 10 times more people on the stage, engaging with us, and more than 200 more people, 200 times more people following our program online. And I'm not even talking about the whole, long tail with the little stories we create and the posts that we are still doing about the conference. It is huge. Like, our reach has probably magnified by the magnitude of 100.
It was like you had a very very lively Slack channel for going on with everybody on expressing their opinions, which is really good because I think it expanded the community. Or although we were physically distanced from each other, we were like all following, and that's something that doesn't happen. Every year when we do the conference, we usually go say hello to all our friends and whatnot, and it's hard to interact also because you have in a digital term, we have limited bandwidth, how many people we can interact at a time. But this was a great opportunity to make the conference a little bit different. You're right, Christopher. I mean, the opera and Christopher have been doing the streaming for many years, and they opened it digitally until they could start opening. It was for free, so he also responded very quickly. Berlin responded also very quickly, but some other orchestras have stayed behind, and some want to do it, but they don't seem to find how to do it, how to make it different. And it's one of the things that I'm very impressed with the institute, that we think that the digital technology is all very new for classical music institutions, but as we could see on the clip from Karajan, it's something that he had been pushing for the longest time. And correct me if I'm wrong, maybe it's a little bit of an urban legend that the length of the CD was decided to be the length of him conducting Beethoven's Ninth Symphony. When Sony and Philips decided that's the length because that's how long it takes von Karajan to conduct the Ninth Symphony. So it is for us that we've been together doing this for a few years. It's the logical step. Where do we go next? And obviously, I would like to see more people, but it's the smaller institutions, the individual artists that have been able to be more proactive, more progressive on their offering, and we're able to see them now. Yes. What are you? And you also have Sonophilia together with your wife Seda, which I guess that conference had to shut down as well.
So typically what we have for Sonophilia Foundation is a foundation that looks at supporting creativity in the world. And that's a very broad goal, but the idea there is to say that, first of all, creativity is not limited to the geniuses in the world. It's something that every human has. And creativity is also something that is not limited to the arts. It's actually something that you use in everyday life, in your business life, in your entrepreneurial life, but also in your day-to-day life. And so to actually further creativity in the world is to help us with innovation. It's with helping us with a basic happiness, to be really, really happy. You want to be able to create, and it's also helping us with societal well-being. That's why we founded the Sonophilia Foundation, and we have a network which is very broad. It's also a global network, so we have events throughout the year in various cities. And of course, for a couple of weeks, this was suspended. And what we're doing now in September is we're going to, instead of trying to get everyone to Salzburg, which we usually did, we are actually calling it a Sonophilia Global Day, and all of the hubs around the globe will have an event the same day, and we're going to connect it at various points of the day together so that the community can be in one place. That's another way for us to try to make something new out of this crisis. Sonophilia has been growing very strongly because now, as we have these restrictions, people see how important the value of creativity is. And so when you think about the way that companies are run, the way that schools are run, there's still a lot of room for improvement to really support creativity of every single person. And it's needed because the challenges we have in the world for the human race, for our planet, are immense, and we need the creativity of everyone on the planet to help out.
We certainly do. We were talking with some of our previous guests about musical education, how governments in general tend to cut. When they cut, the first thing that goes is the music class.
Yes.
But the way to learn mathematics faster is through music. It's that's
Yes.
it's easier thing, and we are trying to get an interview with Nicola Benedetti, who opened the Benedetti Foundation a few months ago, almost a year, and that is their main focus: education, not as obviously music education, but also education in general, assisted by music. And I think that's where we are failing a little bit, or not us, because we're the champions of, or we go championing the music, but in general, we need harder or bigger support for musical education.
Yeah.
Matthias, I want to ask you, how many people live in Salzburg? And there's a follow-up question. It's not just a random question.
I think it's 150,000 people.
150,000. It's a very, very small city. I've been there uh, not only for the conference, but I went to meet with you the very first time there in your offices. Salzburg became a hub for creativity, not only musical creativity, but in general, there's a lot of technology development, a lot of artistic development. How did that happen? That does not happen to a small town in the mountains.
I think it's a combination of three things. One is you have a group of people inside of the city who are passionate about, developing something in that area. And then you have one visionary, or one or two or three who really push the boundary. But what's really interesting about Salzburg is, of course, that it's a little bit off the beaten tracks. So when people decide to come here, they come here for a reason. So it's not like a big city, and I could name New York or Paris, or I could say, Moscow. It doesn't matter which of the big cities, Beijing. You can go there. You can, be there for a culture, but there are a lot of other things that you can do. And in Salzburg, if you come to Salzburg in the summer, then you are really into culture and this kind of lifestyle. And so it's a perfect mix of being a little bit remote, but then enabling a lot of focus. And the people here in Salzburg have realized that being a cultural center puts them at the center of politics and economy as well. And this is what we've seen over the last 400-500 years in this town.
It's been when I first went, I was quite surprised because everybody tells you, okay, the most important thing is the tour of the Sound of Music, which is like, okay, but once you pass that, of course, it's the place of birth of Mozart. But beyond that, it's like Red Bull is headquartered there, the media division. You have Dolby has studios there. I was like blown away by the amount of things that are happening. Like your conference is hosted at the Mozarteum University, and it's really an astonishing place how many things happen. And one other thing that obviously happens there is the Easter Festival. I don't know if you were really involved in that. I don't know if you're still involved in it. What is going on with the Salzburg Festival at this point?
Yeah. So just to go back to something you said earlier before going to the Easter Festival. So a lot of people say like, well, there's Mozart and then there's Sound of Music, but for me these things are connected because why was the Sound of Music filmed in Salzburg? Why did the story take place here? It's because it is a really musical, area, and because stories like these can emerge from a place like here. So for me, there is no contradiction, and I'd even go so far to say that most people, I'd say like 95% of the people I know, when they like classical music, they also like other kinds of music, and there is no separation in that sense. So being a music city, of course, means also to embrace, diverse types of repertoires. For the Easter Festival, what's happening is that we are, unfortunately, we are in a situation where we had to cancel this year. I'm still involved in the board of the Karajan Foundation, which is a part owner of the festival. So what is happening in the Salzburg Easter Festival is that we had to cancel this year, but we are hopeful and looking forward to the future for next year. And of course, also the Salzburg Easter Festival will learn from this experience and will try to grow in a sense where we are also open to what's happening in the digital world, to connect our communities, which are a global community, to Salzburg, not only for this one event a year, but continuously trying to be engaged with them. That, I think, is what is important, and I'm very hopeful that the Easter Festival next year will come back and shine as ever and be a beacon of what the vision of Herbert von Karajan was.
Tell me from your conference, I've met a lot of very cool people, and I'm using the word right there because they are really cool. Every year when we meet, we find kids that are developing applications for classical music or any kind of music. The people from music who do the iPad score, the digital score, launched their product there in your conference. What's new? What's new with what have you seen lately that we missed a little bit this year? Because I know you're involved in so many projects. Like I remember when we were trying to make a recording studio in a container,
Yes.
in a shipping
That may
container.
come back, that may come back.
I'm sure that will come back. We were doing that. We met in Berlin to do that, actually.
Yes, yeah, but that, this is now this is really interesting, because when we talked about it, no one thought like, why would we want to have a place that people can go to make music, to bring friends and send that into the world? Why would we need that? And I said, well, but this is so obvious, because we want to connect people and we want to actually get the creativity in remote places to be connected to the rest of the world. And now I think this same value proposition all of a sudden becomes very, logical. And yeah, of course, it makes perfect sense, because the sound here, I'm sure it will sound good, because we're working here with Symmetrica TV. But normally, when you do something like this, the sound is not so great, the connection maybe not, and so yeah. So these are some of the things that we tried out in the past. They will definitely come back, because we were a little bit ahead of the curve. What else? I think that personally, I believe that machine learning and artificial intelligence in the music production context and in music education will be growing and will be very big. Think about a little assistant in your keyboard that knows what you're playing and can help you perform something in a way that is unusual, or maybe not the norm, or help you find the places that you need some more practice, or a musical instrument that you can use in your digital audio workstation that has been created by an AI. And so I think the creativity of machines and the creativity of humans, that the combination will create very, very interesting new musical types. And this is something that I'm looking forward to.
You usually bring companies that when I see them before the conference, I say, what is he thinking? I always try to get into your head, and it's very
Yeah.
hard. But then it all comes together. Last year, you invited the people from Volkswagen.
Yes.
And I never understood why would we have as one of the most important presenters in that year's conference to be a car company. But if you could tell me more, because, or you can tell the people more than me,
Yes.
what
Yeah.
that project was about, because it was like completely out of left field, completely surprising for me.
Yeah. Well, first of all, Volkswagen has been our partner for the conference for many years. And what I really like about working with Volkswagen is that this is not a typical sponsorship kind of thing where, you know, we put their logo someplace and they send us money. This is more about creating opportunity for cooperation. And one of the things we did with Volkswagen is we said, like, okay, if you think about the development of autonomous driving, okay, it goes through stages. You have automatic driving, then you have autonomous driving. What is happening is that there is a shift in attention. Attention was mostly with the driver. You had to focus on the road, and now attention is shifting away from the road, shifting towards what can happen within the vehicle. And that, of course, is a huge opportunity for everyone who is involved in the content industry, right? If the driver now is free to address, his or her attention to the people with him in the car, or to, media that he would like to consume or she would like to consume, then that is something like a game changer for the media industry. And so I thought, let's invite the people who are working on this right now and have a discussion with people from the media industry. Another thing that we did together with Volkswagen was to we had this very, very interesting email one day from a guy in Switzerland, Ricardo Simeon, and he writes me about printing musical instruments with 3D printers. And in most cases, something like this would go straight to the trash bin. But I said, like, oh wow, that is really cool, because if you have a musical instrument that is 3D printed, you can put all sorts of sensors in there. You could make it really a connected device. And so I thought, well, it would be really interesting to put him together with Volkswagen, who have, a lot of 3D printing capabilities and have a whole team working on this kind of thing. And they did, and they worked together on something new. And we were able to present that at the conference. So I'm always trying to take X and Y, which don't seem to be connected on the surface, and just extrapolate what could be possible if they work together in the future. And that's what we do.
We've known each other for many years. But we've never, or I've never asked you, what's your background? How, what did you study first?
So when I was a little kid, I fell in love with the classical guitar, and that was when I was 5 years old. I had my first, guitar experience, and so I was playing the guitar for most of my childhood, and became very good at it. This way I got to meet one of the great guitarists of our times, Elliot Fisk, and he became my teacher. And then from the guitar, when I was a teenager, I was also very interested in biochemistry and later on in computer science. And I studied music, but I always studied music only part-time and, tried to do other things on the side. And so after a while, it became clear to me that I was really interested in learning more about the core of what music is. And so I was invited to do a PhD at Harvard University with a stipend, which I then did. And then I taught there the postdoc. And really, I was a very sort of academically trained scientist in music research. And then at some point, I felt that it was important for me to go out into the world, out of the academic ivory tower, if you will, and change something. And that's when I decided to go back to Europe and follow the invitation to run the Karajan estate.
How did that come about? Like you don't get an invitation to run
the
Karajan Institute just out of the blue. You it's like
it's a funny story because I was approached by a headhunter, and this was via email, and I thought she was doing, some of my friends who were hackers and computer scientists are, playing a joke on me, and so I didn't respond to her. And after a few weeks, she wrote me back and said, like, "Are you sure you're not interested in this? Because you would be a really good fit." And then we talked on Skype, and we met in person, and this is how this came about. But it came totally out of the blue, to be honest. It later on we reconstructed. It was because she was looking at the website of a conference that I helped to co-create as a student. It was the Harvard German student conference, and yeah.
wow, and it fell on your lap, or you fell onto their laps, I guess.
I don't know. It was a little bit fate.
Taking that job, I guess it's more than a job. It's really, I can't describe it as a job because you're so passionate about running the institute. You have a huge responsibility. How does that work? How do you include yourself in being responsible of the legacy of? I wouldn't even say of the conductor. It's the whole name, the whole legacy of the person that was von Karajan must be tremendous.
Well, first of all, I never met the man, and so for me, I come from a very fresh perspective to the whole topic. So I spent when I started at the institute, I spent the first 3 months just reading everything that we have in our archive, like every single letter, and it was amazing to see that it's there is a man who is answering every letter that is being sent to him, from the little boy who writes from a little town to the CEO of Deutsche Bank, he was very much engaged with the community, and that was very humbling to see. I have a fantastic team at the institute. We are a small team, but my colleagues, every one of us is super motivated, and we all love music. This is something that's very important to me. Like everyone who works with us, they have a very very deep and beyond usual love of music. So we try to start from there, and then what we try to do is we try to listen to the community. We try to enable them to bring something to the table. So for us, it's not about sending out messages about how great Herbert von Karajan was. It's about how we can create a community around the ideals of Karajan today and enabling that.
The image that I get from von Karajan is always the tremendously strong conductor. The very strict. And what you're telling me is he would take the time to answer a little boy's letter or whatnot. We live in a time where we get 200 emails a day, and most people will not respond to them. It says a lot about him. Obviously you never met him, but I suppose you spent a lot of time with his widow. And what kind of a man was he? I don't want to go into doing the documentary that has been done 20 times about his life, but what kind of a man you feel he was that takes the time? Really nobody takes time for anything these days. That takes the time to respond to anybody, to everybody.
So it's a very, very good question, and to answer it is really, really difficult because like every man, there are lots of facets, and one of the things that, of course, you have to see is that there's a private and a public side, and normally. And what's really interesting with von Karajan is that he was someone who really, really lived for his passion. And what struck me when I started to look at all of the letters and all of the started talking about to his colleagues at the time was that what emerged was this image of a person who was really into the music full time and had no interest in sort of the jet set life that everyone thinks he had, like going to parties and so on. So that wasn't there. I saw a man who was really concerned about trying to do the best he could for music, trying to bring the composer's intention into musical performance, trying to make the orchestra one and really playing together. There's one story that really had a huge impact on me, and this is a interview he did towards the end of his life. He's sitting in his own living room with his jogging suit, really, and he's being interviewed by one of the foremost journalists in Austria, and is being asked, so Mr. von Karajan, what are you most proud of in your life? All of the achievements you have done. And Karajan says, nothing. And the interviewer is completely surprised. It's like, but this cannot be. You did so many great things like this, like that. Like, there truly has to be something. There has to be something you truly care about. And he said, yes, I care about it all, but I would do it differently if I had the power and the stamina to do it. And this still gives me the goosebumps when I tell this story, because this is so humble, and it shows that there's a person who's trying to achieve something that is bigger than himself. This is what I find most inspiring about this man. And you can see it in many different places in his work.
Yeah, obviously, his conducting skills are. I never saw him obviously conducting live, but all the films that have been enhanced by the institute to make us feel, the music strong. It's hard to describe what his passion was, or it's hard to understand because I don't know if he was passionate about the music or about conducting or about being or trying to be as close and perfect as possible to the rendition of the work. And it's hard to see his the other side, the not so public side. I suppose that his private side was incredibly private, and it's hard to know what kind of a man he was. But it's not every person that can, do so many things. Like I don't know anybody who conducts who can also fly a plane. Although it's not true. Daniel Gatti flies for KLM.
So,
But yeah, go ahead.
yeah, no, I just one clue maybe in von Karajan's life is his very deep and profound interest in the effect that music has on the human body and the human mind. And this is something that he cared about deeply. And in the 60s, he started a foundation and then an institute to research the actual effect of music on the human body and mind. And I believe that this is the driving force for him throughout his life. He was someone who was super curious. I didn't mention it earlier, but the idea of the Karajan Music Tech Conference goes right back to a series of events that Karajan started himself. Every year after the Easter Festival, he would get together with researchers, scientists, with philosophers and politicians and thinkers to discuss topics around music. And this was, typically happening right at the end of the festival because then he was done conducting. But it was this idea to bring together a mix of people from different disciplines to come closer to the secret of what music is. And I think this is what drove him. And he didn't speak about it directly all the time, but you can see how this is something that is preoccupying him throughout his life.
That will drive me to a question after this one. But I wanted to ask you: is von Karajan, and for that matter, conductors of that level, that there's not a tremendous amount of them, are they misunderstood? And I'll tell you another example: Ricardo Muti, who lives very close by, also as in Salzburg, has a house there. Are they misunderstood? And I know they used to have some kind of friendship as well. Are they misunderstood because they're looking for perfection in the music of what we as the audience has to hear to really feel and to understand the music? I don't know if I'm being clear about the. We understand them as those conductors who are very strict again, and do we tend to misunderstand them as regular people?
Well, I don't know. It's perhaps you could ask the same question about CEOs of companies or entrepreneurs, and every time has its different view on what the role of the leader is and what are traits of a good leader and what is maybe not so successful. And one thing that conductors and leaders of companies have in common is that they need to create a sense of community. And I believe that the public sees only the moment of the conductor's work that is, I don't want to say the least important because it's not, but it's the one that is least work-centered. You know, all of the hard work is done before you are on stage. On stage, of course, you know, there's a lot to do, and you need to be able to get everything together and to actually make music together with this large group of people. But it's in the rehearsals and it's in the, you know, conversations in between that I think the true conductor, the great conductor, is shining, and you know, the mediocre one is just, you know, doing their job. So in a way, that's the secret, or the, you know, the secret ambience around the great conductors.
One thing that you mentioned, and I'm coming back to the question that I was thinking about when you were talking about the what music does physically to the human body, to the mind. And I didn't know Karajan was involved on this. I spoke a little more than a year ago with René Fleming in Washington. We were talking about real results when people listen to music, and what modern treatment can, for health reasons, can come out of music. Is the Institute doing anything on that regard? It's a topic that fascinates me, and I'm actually fascinated that, or intrigued that it hasn't taken off as much as it should.
Yeah. So we try to create a community around this topic. That's one thing that we're doing right now. So there is no concrete research project right now that we are doing, although we have been, you know, trying to secure funding from the Austrian Research Foundation and others. It takes a little time to, you know, get the ball rolling again on this, but this is something that is very close to our core mission, and I believe that especially when you take music, neuroscience, and the capabilities of data science today, you can actually get a lot of interesting advances in this field. So I've spoken at a conference called Music and Neurosciences in the past. It happens every 3 years. This conference is really getting together all of the researchers in this field, and I think that following what they are doing and helping them and that community to thrive, that's something that we'll be doing more in the future.
It's a topic that fascinates me. Because when we're sad or when we're happy, there's always music related that we can identify with. When you're sad, you play certain music. When you're happy, I had an interview a couple of weeks ago with a couple of psychiatrists in Sao Paulo, and they're doing a project similar where they're analyzing as well what music does. I want to play a clip from the Karajan Tech Music Conference from this year that obviously the conference didn't happen live, but I want to play it, and then we'll be back to wrap up our conversation today, if you're fine with that.
Yeah.
For musicians and entrepreneurs who don't feel inspired at other music and tech events, the Karajan Music Tech Conference is a new kind of think tank where they will get to interact with the very best minds from around the world. Unlike at other conferences, we do not only talk about the future of classical music, we actually create it. We work on concrete projects such as building intelligent music instruments, developing new concert formats, or creating new music apps at our classical music hackathons. We love innovation in classical music, and this is why we created the Innovation Lab for young inventors, where they can showcase their work. We also have emotional concerts where music meets AI and VR, and of course, plenty of opportunity to network with all the amazing speakers and artists at the conference. If you think and feel that you want to change the future of classical music, then come and join us April 3rd, 2020 in Salzburg. This is your opportunity to become part of the Karajanist movement.
So April 3rd didn't happen, but I'm sure you have something planned for April of next year.
Yes, well, it did happen. It didn't happen in Salzburg.
Yeah, it happened digitally, but it did happen. You're right.
We had 2,000 people on the two stages we did virtually, but yeah, no one was in Salzburg except for my team. Next year, so what we learned from this experience was that we have a lot of interest in the world for what we're doing. And so my goal is now to set up regular events in the digital world. And then, as you know, we are slowly opening up again for having real events, to have regional events that are then broadcast into the global community, and where people from the global community, like you and others, can participate as well, also as speakers, you know, people who discuss. So next time around will probably be earlier than April. It will be sometime in the fall, and then a couple more times before perhaps more people will then be able to come to Salzburg in April again. But from now on, Karajan Music Tech is a global hybrid network of online and offline events.
It's truly amazing the work that you do. Thank you very much. Because you've contacted so many people. It's like you're the central point in a network of music and technology. I've met so many people thanks to you and to your team and the great work that you do. And I really hope we will meet in Salzburg sooner rather than later, and perhaps before even the next conference. As soon, I'm fortunate that I live in Canada, so we are able to start traveling back to Europe. Not like we used to. It's going to be forever different, I suppose. But yes. I can't wait to come back and see you there and have a new exchange of ideas. This thing with health and music is something that has been in the back of my mind for a long time, and I hope we can do something with it, especially at this time in history.
Alex,
Matthias,
it's a pleasure to talk to you. So thank you very much for the invitation today. And thank you for all you've done for the Karajan Music Tech Network, and looking forward to seeing you soon.
Thank you. It's always a pleasure to say hello to Seda. It's always great to see you there and have conversations, even now that it's remotely. I love doing it. From the first time that I came to meet with you in Salzburg, it's been always a great pleasure to be with you.
Likewise.
To all our viewers, thank you very much for joining us again. Next week it will be a very different schedule. We will be coming to you live, and we've been working on this for the last 2 months. We're going to be in Wyoming in the Grand Teton Music Festival. That is also going to be digital, a reduced version of it. We plan to have 2 live interviews for this Music Cafe. I can tell you in advance that Donald Ronicles is going to be with us there. He will be conducting some music on a very reduced scale. We will be, unfortunately, physically really separated for the musicians, but we will be in Grand Teton, which I'm so happy that they're getting it to do it. We're doing it in a very safe way. Our team here from Symmetrica is going there. So I will be posting when we will be going live, because right now we don't know until we're there. But we'll have some great surprises for everybody. Matthias, again, thank you very much, and I hope that everybody joins us next time. And I hope to see you again in Salzburg soon. Thank you, and until next
Bye,
time.
Alex.
Bye-bye. Thank you.